videos.
Lots of different things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Should we just start with one thing more?
Yeah. I feel like that's a good place to start.
What do you think?
I thought it was really good. I ended up reading it just like in one sitting because I kept going. And I thought it was really good. And I feel like so many bad things happened to her that it was like I kept rooting for like some kind of happy ending.
Yeah, all the obstacles that she faced.
Did you think the ending was happy, or were you not satisfied with the ending?
I thought it was happy. I thought it was pretty good. I don't think she would.
Yeah. I'm glad it went against the grain of like the typical like reunification at the end of a story and like the happy ever after, you know what I mean, where the dad just comes swooping back, so, oh, I'm sorry, and she's like, oh, okay. Yeah, I like that
Thanks
she's
for
still
saying
like,
sorry, Dad.
no, just kidding.
Yeah.
Not gonna lie.
And she's doing like her own thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like she stood up for herself and like what she needed.
Yeah, I think her
It's
like
important.
her gaining like confidence and independence was more of the happy ending for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and seeing her role transition to become that motherly figure for
The little girl,
Yeah, the
the
little
orphanage
girl.
that she first thought was like dirty and
that's
smelly.
right.
Me too. But
Starts with an A. Artha, something like that.
What did you guys learn by reading it?
I think it was just a really good perspective into like Middle Eastern culture and how they view all the invaders and like recent conflicts that have occurred like in their country. Like there's a small passage where they said, "Hey, you don't need to wear that on your head. The Taliban aren't here anymore." And like I don't know, that was just like made me like rethink what it would be like to live in that country during those times, you know, and like how they weren't always like, oh yeah, they're doing the right thing. Yeah, the Taliban are fighting for us. Like they also didn't like them. So I thought the perspective was really cool.
Yeah, I feel like I learned a lot this week, just in general.
yeah, me too.
Like,
Yeah,
did you read
there's so many
the
things
article about the Haji?
Mhm.
Or about Haji?
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was really interesting.
I feel like there's so many different interesting articles and videos this week.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I
Like-
think. Oh, thank you.
No, you're good. I'm done.
Sorry. I think with the hijab, it was really interesting because we often think of it as something that's like super oppressive.
Yeah, and these women are like, no, it like frees us from all these other standards that y'all have to live up to. And I'm like,
Mhm.
wait, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like I saw this one comic once, and it was like two different women. There was a woman on the beach, she was like wearing a bikini, and then there was a woman on the beach, she was wearing a hijab, and or hijab. I'm not pronouncing it right either way. And one was looking at they were both looking at each other and thinking in their heads like, oh, like men's oppressive, like thoughts.
That's
Like,
funny.
just like looking at them, like how they both are thinking that they had to wear those things to like fit in something for men. And it was like, we always think that like what's not like us, people must be suffering.
Right.
Like with the article about like arranged marriages
Yeah.
and whatnot, and like instead of him kind of like forcing or pushing his like Western ideals about like marriages and how he sees it as like it's not your choice kind of thing, where she like explored her culture and like the reasons as to why like their culture believes that like that's, I don't know, the way it should be, or you know. I thought that was interesting.
One of my good friends, Prachi, she had an arranged marriage, and she worked with my dad, and she was like kind of younger, so I was used to like go there when I would like we became friends, and then before I went to India, she like took me shopping and we went out to eat. She like taught me how to like which hand to eat with, because one hand's like the hand you used to go to the bathroom, the other hand's like the hand you used to eat.
Interesting.
Important distinction.
Yeah. And so, but she had an arranged marriage with like this man, but it wasn't a man that she'd ever met before. It was a man that like their families had been like good friends,
And
like,
that they do have the choice.
and she had the choice. But it was also like, hey, my family like knows me better than anyone else, and this person like has a lot of the same ideals and morals that I do. Like she like got to know him over years, and like they did like kind of date too. But it was like that connection, that like kind of like
That, like,
blind
friendship.
date connection. It was, and friendship was through their family. And I was thinking about that, like do we think when someone goes on a blind date with someone that we're like, oh, like poor them, like they're like how oppressive, like that's awful.
Yeah.
No, we're just like a friend thought this person would be good for you, so
Have you seen a Bend It Like Beckham?
yes, I love
It
Bend It Like
reminds
Beckham.
me of that, and like sort of just the modern, just I don't know.
Yeah.
Sorry, what were you gonna say? I think I cut you off. I don't know. I just thought of Bend It Like Beckham. That's really awesome.
My older sister and I always used to like. There's a scene when like two girls are going like let us,
And
they always used to say that to each other too, and they're like really bad English accents.
Oh, but that makes me also think of that documentary that was like by BBC. So I thought that was really interesting to have an outsider's perspective on America and looking at these social issues within America from like a British point of view. But like watching it as an American, it was like there are a lot of things at play here. Yeah, I thought it was cool.
One thing that too, I'm going to talk a little more about arranged marriages, was that I think I need to fix some of my view on it too. Is like it's still hard for me not to think like arranged marriages and have it like negative like connotation.
Yeah.
And part of the research we were doing in India is that we were doing like awareness and education, and we found out through like UN statistics and World Health Organization statistics that like the greatest threat for like women in India to, like of contracting HIV was actually being married and not being like a sex worker or not like working in a hospital. All these different other factors because like of arranged marriages they didn't have like get tested before they were married, and then there was a lot of like
The men don't get tested.
Like infidelity?
infidelity as well like within marriage.
Mhm.
And so that's something too that like goes through my brain too when I think of like
Yeah.
arranged marriage, which like isn't really fair, I don't think.
No, but it's definitely something to think about. Like
Yeah.
that's
I think one of the biggest things that I took from wanting more was definitely just like perseverance.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And I thought it was cool how she kind of like discovered more about herself and her culture and like her values, which was cool.
I think one of my favorite parts about the book is the way that like all the like womanly figures were referred to as aunts, and like all of the like men that helped out were referred to as like an uncle, and I thought that was just really cool because it kind of paints a picture of like how close knit their communities are, and like how here in America it's like sometimes your neighbors can just be complete strangers and people like you hate or people like you don't even know their name, you don't know anything about them, but it seems like in their culture like everybody knows everybody kind of, or at least as an idea for people are. So I kind of liked how like the portrayal of the community of let's say Kabul. Yeah, I don't know. I just really liked it because that's not something that we get to see that often, especially like in the media and like in the classroom. We don't get to see just like how they live their everyday life. All we see is like the Taliban and Al Qaeda and like all the bad stuff and the blood and the bombs.
And I feel like that's what perpetuates like what it was talking about in the documentary with like Islamophobia. I feel like how we keep putting all the negative stuff in the spotlight instead of talking about how
it's like the single story too.
Mm-hmm.
They're just suicide bombers, and that's all we think of them as.
And then too, like the biggest thing that I think about too is that Westboro Baptist Church is like a small percentage of that religion, and yet we don't look at that whole religion as being like Westboro Baptist Church. So why is it suddenly okay that we look at everyone who's Muslim as a terrorist? You know,
Yeah,
like
that, I
this
think
thing.
that's what I was trying to get at when I was talking about that Taliban passage, was just that it like kind of destroys that single story. It makes you realize that no, there are people there who probably wish that the Taliban never did what they did and just like left Afghanistan alone, and they could have had peace.
Yeah, it was like there's that one video we watched. It was like about equality.
Mm-hmm.
All the different like they talked about. I forgot what the word was. It was like what was
Oh,
I know
yeah.
what you're talking about.
I don't know, but it was like talking about like equality within Islam and how that was really important.
Yeah,
and
it
then all
was
those
like Jordan Women's History, that one.
Yeah. And then all the different like legal action that's been taken in all those different countries. And like I had never heard of any of that.
Yeah.
And like that's not
No, you hear it's like women can't drive or like they're oppressed with these burqas or but that's not.
I also like the distinction between the multiple languages too. I thought that that was really important and a really good perspective into
Yeah.
their culture as well. Like the Farsi and then what was the other one called? I forget. But then there was like also like Old Arabic too, like which is what the Quran was printed in. She couldn't read. Like I thought that was interesting. Like I've never, for some reason, I thought they all spoke Arabic. Like that's obviously my ignorance right there showing up. But yeah, I thought that was really strange to see that there's like dialects and then their ancient text is written in the language that hasn't been translated to like their more common speaking language.
Yeah, like
So
I
thought
feel
that
like
was
I'd
interesting.
heard the name of all those languages and
Yeah.
stuff and kind of knew where they lived,
Mhm.
but like didn't really have a context to like understand them or like put them in a
Yeah.
Same with like the Palestine and Israel whole thing. It's like I like have heard so much about that but still have been like I cannot construct like a really good understanding of what this is and what's happening and like who's right and who's wrong, and then watching those videos you kind of realize that like nobody's really right or wrong anymore. Like if the UN hadn't put their hands in it, it probably would have been a lot better from the beginning, but
Like there's more than two sides to the story.
yeah.
For me, while reading Wanting More, it was super helpful to have that like reference in the back of all of the different words, because I go to one and I'd be like what is that? I don't know, and then I'd like go to the back and
That would be helpful for
Searches.
students.
Yeah,
too, for sure.
Yeah, and I think
Give
that
them,
makes the
like,
book a little bit
Because-
more exciting.
yeah, instead of me just reading through it and then being like I don't know that word, I'm just gonna move on. Like
Yeah.
I could actually like have a deeper understanding instead of having to go to like a computer and like research it.
And like if the context clues don't help you, then there's a reference and
Yeah.
back to like.
And I think that the book did a good job of kind of not abusing,
Mm-hmm.
I guess, those words, and they came up like kind of sparingly and kind of like spaced out. And I thought that the author did a really good
Yeah,
job
It's
of
where it
not,
wasn't like
of
overwhelming.
not just like overwhelming the reader with a bunch of words they did not already know beforehand. So I thought that was really good and helped the book be read easily.
Going back to the whole like negative connotation, like when you think of cultures and like their values and stuff, I kind of think of that saying. I don't know exactly how it goes, but it's like you hear like 3 positive things and 1 negative thing, but
You
you
remember
only
that.
take away the like
Negative.
1 negative thing, which is
Crazy.
so true.
It is true.
Yeah.
It's like when you get like your paperback or something,
Mm-hmm.
and it's mostly positive, but then you have that one little
That one
comment.
little sentence.
Yeah,
One
true.
little
Like,
comment.
oh.
And guess what you're gonna remember? You're gonna
Yeah,
remember that
you
one.
still got a 92, but you got
Yeah.
one negative comment.
Yeah. Interesting how that works.
How do you think you guys would formulate like a lesson plan around this book? Or let me back up. Would you use it at all? I guess.
I can see it being available in the classroom.
Me too.
I don't think I would read it aloud.
Why not?
I think it'd be. I think this would be a harder book to like read aloud to the class, but maybe that was just me.
Yeah, I think it might, especially if you're unsure how to pronounce the words.
Yeah, but I think it's like a really important book. So like, I think there'd be definitely benefits of like reading it aloud and like having those conversations with the class instead of having kids independently read it. Because I think that like, if you had that conversation with the class about like all those different things that come up, like oppression and religion and war and violence, that might be a good way to
Yeah.
I
like
think
start
it's,
those
yeah,
conversations.
like I would definitely want kids to discuss it, like even if they read it individually and then come
Yeah.
together.
Like you could do like maybe like like a little SSR where they all read the same chapter at the same time, and then afterwards you come
So I
together.
think there are a lot of things that kids could relate to in this book, like
Yeah.
not just to
Because it's a coming of age story too that they can
Yeah.
obviously relate with like making friends and parents getting remarried and things like very common themes.
I think I would probably take
parents are addicts.
maybe like
Yeah.
that book and 2 other books that are either about that specific culture or different types of cultures, and then maybe seeing how like the common themes in the books relate, or and they can share about the different cultures and maybe get different insights into different cultures as well.
My thinking too is to not, if I wasn't gonna like read it in front of the class, was to have like reading groups of students, and then like that's a great idea of like maybe there's like 3 books that reading group like reads, and it's all about like different cultures or religions, and then like students can read them and discuss them in small
kind of
groups.
be experts and then
and then like everyone can share their thoughts after reading like those few chapters together. I think that'd be good.
I feel like for me it's kind of difficult to take some of the like novel books that we've been reading and trying to see how I would apply them to my younger students, because I am looking to potentially teach between like K through 2nd, so I feel like a lot of the things that are in the bigger novels are a lot more like complex.
Yeah.
And so it's like for me it's been kind of a struggle to see like how would I use this in my classroom.
Yeah, this book.
But I can see how I would use it like with my
With
older
older
students for
students.
sure. It's just
But
But that's why I think it's nice to have like the children's books as well as like resources that I've gained throughout this class, because I can see how I can use those a little more, like the picture books and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think there's finding like picture books related to this, or picture books with like a character who's a woman.
Kind of taking from that and then trying to find mentor texts that kind of go with.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good one. That's a good idea to do it.
Because unless you're a really advanced second grade.
Yeah.
Reading this book made me really like wonder why there isn't a whole lot of Middle Eastern literature like available.
I can count on one hand the number I've read.
Yeah, I've read this in Kite
Runner, and
That's
I
it.
haven't even read
other books by that author.
Yeah, and I just think it's kind of sad, honestly, that I don't know if it comes down to there just aren't as many authors writing about it, or it's
Or
just
is
the
it-
publishers not
that.
publishing
We're
it.
not given the access.
Yeah, I think that some publisher needs to step up and start like giving us the cultural aspect, like the views that we need to be well-rounded people.
And even in addition to publishing, but also advertising it
Yeah,
and putting it out there. Because I feel like even when these are published, you don't necessarily know they're out there because they
That's
kind of just publish it quietly, and it's not actually like broadcasted.
yeah.
But like if we like can push it more, I feel like we would be able to know and find more books.
I have a question that's a little off topic. So you know how in the United States, like we have like our search engines on like our computer that's like Google, like but for the United States, and then there's like Google for like different countries. So when we type into Google like a question about a different culture, is it coming from the American perspective, or is it coming from resources from like across the world?
I think it depends on what you click.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't work for Google.
I think like, well, the reason that it's an American Google would be language, right? And so if you like switched it to like another country, maybe your results would be in another language. But I don't know where the sources themselves are coming from. Like I feel like I've definitely read stuff that's from other countries, but I mean I can only read it in English, so that limits like.
Google
I guess what I'm
says
wondering
it's,
is like, if
list
I
based.
type in, I don't know, something, and I'm in America, and he types in the same thing, and he's in
Honestly,
Asia,
It'll
like,
pull up
is it going to
different
pull up
results.
this?
Yeah, I
it
think
is going to
so.
pull up different results.
I think it would pull up the same results because Google sells what comes up first are the people that pay the most,
Yeah.
and it goes down by the amount of money they give Google. So I think
So you think they'd be the same?
I think you'd
if
get
she
the
was
same. Yeah, I think you'd get the same, probably the same like top 10.
Yeah.
It's a good question though.
Yeah, I just wasn't
Yeah,
sure because
that's
I'm like,
somebody
Any question?
Yeah.
like
Much at a time.
Oh yeah, Google.
But what do you guys think about the picture books that we read this week? The Cat with the Yellow Star and Hard Seen Hope.
I thought it was good. I'm gonna say something a little controversial. I feel like in my elementary school all the way through like middle and high school, I feel like there have been so many Holocaust books. And I think that's really good, but I think there need to be other books talking about other genocides that have taken place, because I feel like we focus so much on the Holocaust
Yeah.
that like people don't realize what has happened and continues to happen.
Again, the Rwanda.
Rwanda
I
and
don't think
Cambodia.
And I was gonna say in Laos and Cambodia too.
Because my mom does a unit on that in high school, and these kids have never heard about it
Yeah.
at all when they come in, but they know the Holocaust,
Yeah.
and that when they come in, they're tired. They're like, this sounds bad, but like they're tired of constantly learning about it.
No,
Because I feel like you learn about it from the time you're in elementary school, and then you learn it again in middle school, and then you
And
probably
high
learn it
school.
year after year in high
Reignited
school.
by Elie Wiesel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had like so many different Anne Frank type things. I remember,
Yeah.
like middle school, we like watched the movie, read the play,
Right.
watched
Mhm.
the play,
Yeah.
like read the
Yeah.
novel, like which was good. Like it's a really
Yeah,
important
it's super
story
important.
to hear. But I'm also like
It's
Like,
not the only
that was
Right.
a lot of time dedicated to that. When like there should be time dedicated to it, but I agree. Like there's a lot of other awful things that happen all
I
the time.
wonder if another thing at play with like how much we learn about the Holocaust too is America's like sort of image.
Yeah, I was gonna
in
say
that like story within history, like often like it's sort of heroic, like the you know
Yeah, it sounds so bad to say, but it's like the one thing that American can say they like saved the world from.
Because with the Cambodia
Yeah,
one,
and
it's
so-
more the opposite.
Yeah, we didn't do anything over there, so why would we teach our kids about what we did do? You know what I mean? Yeah,
Same
that's,
with like Native American, like
I think
Oh,
exactly. That's what I was
exactly. That's
thinking.
what
Like
your
there's
points-
a genocide we can
what
learn
you're
about.
saying about how we learn so many different times about the Holocaust
Across,
just
but we
goes
learned
to show
nothing.
like the American school system and the way it works and like
And then
what
I feel like
we
when
need
we
to know.
did learn like Native American stuff, it was so quick, and like maybe once or twice.
yeah, it was like
Or
a
it was-
Trail of
Tears.
Tears.
I don't
Yeah,
even
or
know
it was
what.
about
I can't even
Sacagawea.
describe
That was
the
it.
Trail of
Yeah.
Tears. I just
Like
know
she
it
was
was
the
really
only
bad.
Indian that ever existed.
That's it.
Yeah,
Like, I can
because
describe
the-
like Holocaust stuff.
The
really
Native
easy.
Americans we learned about are the ones who helped us.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's.
Not the ones who actually.
I think
had
that's one of the things that this course has made me realize the most is just how jaded, I guess you'd say, the American school system is in terms of what it teaches people.
How do you think you'd start to teach elementary students about different genocides?
Ooh.
It would depend on like what age range.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like fourth
'Cause,
and
like-
sixth graders.
Yeah, because like
Kindergarten,
kindergarten,
Yeah.
there's no way.
I don't know. I think you would teach, like, if we were on like a genocide topic, I think you would teach it the same way you teach the Holocaust with like first-hand accounts and like I don't know.
Stories.
I don't think it would be too hard. I think it's just a matter of willpower and like wanting your students to know this information.
And giving them time to process it
Yeah,
and like
and fully
work with
understand
it.
what it
Because
means.
I think it's like it's not something you can rush through and expect a kid to just understand. Like they need time to sit with it and like
Understand it.
Yeah, to understand that like in the killing fields in Laos and like they literally just did it to kill them. Like it wasn't like correct me if I'm wrong, but there wasn't like a religious reason behind the killing fields.
My understanding is that they wanted to bring everything back to a year zero.
Yeah.
So a lot of people who were killed were doctors, teachers,
People with glasses because they were
extremely-
seen as being smarter.
Smarter.
Yeah. So that was just a total like ethnic cleansing
I don't know
too, but
anything about it.
it was.
I
it
recommend
was
watching.
messed up.
There's a movie called The Killing Fields,
Yeah.
and it's based on a true story of a Cambodian journalist paired with an American journalist's experiences in Cambodia
Yeah.
at the time of the genocide.
So basically, they waited for America to pull out of Vietnam. Yeah. Or
Yeah, there was some sort of.
Vietnam?
It was a bomb too
Yeah.
that kind of set it off.
Yeah, they basically waited for us to leave, and then they turned Cambodia and Laos into like military governor
Absolute
rule,
mayhem.
and yeah, they just started killing anybody and everybody they wanted to.
Is that what
They wanted everybody to
You know
be the
the-
same,
The
like,
same.
wealth-wise.
the interview that Joy actually wrote that we read this time where she was interviewing the author who wrote about her work with Cambodian refugees? Would those have been refugees from that time?
Probably.
Very likely.
Yeah, the picture books. That's what we were talking.
Yeah, so what do you think about the cat with the yellow star?
I thought it was good.
I liked the story about Teresa and
Mhm.
like it includes the like play part of it. But I don't know. I thought that I didn't really like it, and I don't think I would teach that specifically.
I was surprised when I opened it how much
Yeah,
how many words there were for
Yeah.
being a picture book.
I think that it was just too drab and vanilla for me. And I don't know. It didn't like the pictures were just like photos off Google Images it looked like, and I don't know.
I feel
For
like
some
if
reason,
you were
I felt
doing-
like it was just too boring.
if you were doing a unit on
Yeah.
the Holocaust, and then I would probably include it, but
One thing that's good about it too, I think, is that like you see that these people, even though they were in this situation that was so outside of their control, they're
Mhm.
still trying to take
make good of it.
whatever control they can of their lives, and like they're not always just people to be pitied or like
Mhm.
you know, there's more to it than that.
Yeah.
So I think it's like a good book in that way, but I agree.
Yeah, I
like,
did
it's
like that
kind of
perspective.
dense. Like
Yeah.
It was a lot denser. Than
I
was
wouldn't
expecting.
have been able to like stay with it. I think as an elementary schooler.
Yeah, especially since I like read Harvesting Hope right before it.
Same.
They were just so drastically different. Like,
Yeah.
you could tell Harvesting Hope is perfect for like
Kids.
K through.
And even
Two or
just for
three,
anybody
you know.
who doesn't know anything about Caesar Child.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it really though could lend itself well to different age groups. I agree.
I see what you're saying though about the Cat with the Yellow Star and the way it like gives you that perspective that you probably haven't gotten from the Holocaust units that we've done. Like the Holocaust units that I've done have been nothing about like Auschwitz and
Yeah.
like
Mm-hmm.
the killing camps,
And
not
like
about
the
the
most
ones,
being helpless.
Yeah.
yeah, and not the ones that weren't killing camps like to reason. Like it was literally just a Jewish community where they were like grouping them up and then sending them slowly to Auschwitz. And so I think that is a story that needs to be told. But I think this book just, I think why I didn't like it so much is because it left me wanting so much more. See what I did there?
Mhm.
Tricky, tricky.
But yeah,
Maybe
I just
like-
I wanted more of that story because I like this story, but I thought that it was just too boring and vanilla the
It's
way
like
they
that there was
told it.
information left out.
Yeah,
I think one good thing.
the year gaps too were too big.
Yeah, they were. I think one thing that you could do is you could like go through it like maybe page by page, like you photocopies like one day by like a day by day, and not like read all at the same time.
Yeah.
Or you could like find some way to like access that play.
That's what I was just thinking about. Is like recreate that play somehow.
Kind of have
like
the
that.
students be in the characters.
That would be cool.
And that way you could give the history behind it,
And get the kids involved.
have the kids be involved, but also not have to like.
You could have that available in your classroom and be like, oh, if you want
Yeah.
to look at this
I think
yourself.
that's definitely a book that should be in your classroom because, like I said, it gives that perspective. But I just want more. Like I think reading a novel about
I think it would have been
Teresa
better.
would
It would have been better in a novel form instead of a
Yeah.
picture book form.
that specific story would have been better in novel form. I think.
Because it already felt like novel story. Because like I opened it out and directly, pictures with the couple
Yeah,
words,
it
and it
almost
was
felt
literally
like a
like
summary of the
words,
novel.
and I'm like, oh okay.
And I was reading that in the 2 hours. I was like.
Like it feels like they cut and pasted out of a novel a little bit, like the opening paragraphs of each chapter, and then just left out the rest. Because I don't know, it also kind of didn't really flow well in my opinion. Like the jumps, like all of a sudden they're moving to America. Like what? Oh, okay,
What happened?
yeah, oh, okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Doesn't seem, I
Yeah, you have
guarantee
to
it
have
wasn't
a
that
pretty
easy.
good understanding of like the timeline of the war.
Yeah,
And
For sure.
also of geography within
Yeah.
Europe because she talks about like and then me and my sister were sitting here and then we were here and it's like I had a really hard time
Yeah.
visualizing.
I was like, I don't know if that's like
Far or is that
down the
close?
street.
yeah, exactly.
I don't know. If
You'd have to teach it with like I guess a lot of supplementary material.
because I don't
so
think
students like
elementary
read that.
schoolers are gonna know like where Poland and where
They're
Czechoslovakia.
barely
are.
learning U.S. geography at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like
If they can't name all 50 states, they're not gonna be able to know what those countries are.
I really liked the Cesar Chavez book.
me too.
Yeah.
That was good.
I think it was like the opposite of the Cat with the Yellow Star in terms that it was like it wasn't dense, but it was so like rich and like
And it had a lot to tell you, but the way
Yeah.
you did it was really good
It was-
for kids and
it
anybody.
was a short, very succinct story that didn't. I don't know. It didn't really leave me wanting more.
I think
It gets better every time.
I think another thing too is like thinking from like an ELL perspective.
Mhm.
I think it'd be really cool to hear like a positive story about like
Motivational and
And
a
how
motivational
Yeah.
story
Yeah.
about
Resistance and
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
how they helped not only like Latin American communities but American communities too.
Mhm.
Like this happened in California for all workers, not just.
No, yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I
so
thought
true.
I thought that was a good
yeah.
point to make about that book.
And he's like an important figure in
Mhm.
American history,
Yeah.
and like
He really
to
is.
The we don't hear about.
About
we
it
don't
at
really
all.
hear about him.
No, yeah.
But like, I think it'd be a really good thing for like students to hear that like they have like power and authority, and
Then they can
like
change things.
yeah, for
One
sure.
person can't make a difference.
Mhm.
And he's a very human person in the
Yeah,
book too.
it was talking about like the different downsides he has, about how he's like quiet. There's that scene where they were waiting for the leader to come in, and he had been there for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
They just didn't notice
Oh,
him.
yeah.
And things like that.
Like
For
him
sure.
trying to like talk to those
Yeah.
ladies and stuff. And it's like, oh, you'll get there.
We just showed like a very human side. to
Yeah,
him.
totally. It wasn't like this unrealistic role model.
Yeah,
It was
they
like a
didn't
very
glorify him.
relatable
Right.
role model for students.
Like superhero.
Yeah.
status.
Like what they did is
It's
not common. It's like, oh, they were given a special ability to do it. It was like this was just an ordinary man
He
doing
just took
Something
it upon himself.
extraordinary.
Yeah.
doing something extraordinary.
Your play on words today. Are just
yeah, you're on
What?
top of it.
That was a plan of words.
I
It
don't know.
was something.
Your one-liners are good.
Thank you.
Stick around, man.
Yeah.
I tried.
This is the last session. Just stay here. I'm trying to think of the other videos. It was a lot.
I know there were.
BBC documentary.
Oh, the poet.
Oh yeah, I love
I really
her
liked
first one.
Me too.
I was just
Oh, with the children's like language.
Mhm.
Is that the video?
The children's language, and then also the one where she was like, we're teaching them life.
Yeah.
I just wanted to like,
You're famous, girl.
yeah, yeah. I posted that one on Facebook actually.
Yeah.
What about Eleanor?
That was really cool. I watched the Ken Burns documentary on the Roosevelts. Do you guys like Ken Burns?
No, I don't
No,
know.
I don't
He's an awesome documentary filmmaker. I'm a big nerd.
Okay.
And yeah, he did one about the Roosevelts, and I learned so much about Eleanor through that whole documentary series. It's like it's so long that they have to like put it on PBS for like a couple different nights.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love those. The like miniseries.
And this book was like completely accurate to like that documentary, or the documentary was completely accurate to the book, whatever you want to say. But like,
It was getting it down.
yeah, it was awesome, and like it's cool too. Like at the end when there's that quote, she's like, "The story's over," but it's not over. She like goes and like, tells politicians what to do, and like works with the UN and all that stuff. It's like, super impressive.
She's cool.
I was inspired.
I was surprised that like in this, I guess it was woven throughout the whole quarter, but like we focused on like a different issue or topic every week, but like we never did like one thing on feminism.
I was just thinking in my head, I was thinking, like, was it difficult for any of you, I don't know if any of you kind of, like, relate to, like, feminism or if you're feminist at all, but, like, reading about, like, this culture and kind of having a feminist perspective in the whole, like, being able to make choices and dress however you want and stuff like that. So it was just kind of, I don't know. Some things for me, it was harder for me to like flip my brain and be like, okay, I see where they're coming from with this.
I do consider myself feminist, absolutely. And I think like reading about, especially the page that was like global, including Jewish or Arab literature, like reading some of that stuff, I was like, okay, women like really are empowered in these
They
societies
do
in a
feel
lot of
empowered,
ways.
and I didn't know that.
Yeah.
It's like,
And like they're respected for who they are rather than like, what they look like or what their bodies are like.
Yeah, I think I was thinking about it in a way too. I was like, we do have like so much freedom of choice, but like if I showed up to this discussion like wearing a full like hedgie,
Chaudry. It's called Chaudry.
okay, well I struggled every time. If I showed up wearing that, like, what would everyone's first thoughts be?
I mentioned that in my post.
Cultural appropriation.
Yeah, cultural appropriation, or like, what if I just showed up like that? Like, I don't know. people have said, like, not sure how much choice we actually have.
Everyone has a first instinct thought, and that first instinct thought is what society's like conditioned you.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you step back and think something else, then that's what you actually think.
Mm-hmm.
So like if you sometimes have like a knee-jerk reaction of oh what, and then you think oh wait no that's a bad reaction like
Yeah, you realize it in yourself, like what you're. And it was interesting too, like with the. I'm just gonna go ahead and say hijab because I don't know how to
I
say
think it's
it.
hijab.
Hijab. Thank
I
you.
think it is.
Okay.
We know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
That women have to like by wearing that one and stand out a lot more in our societies, and so they do have this responsibility, this pressure, if they do choose to wear it.
because then too that comes with a lot of hate towards them
Yeah.
from people.
Oh, we want to say chadri. Hijab is just the headscarf.
Yeah, chadri.
I thought because I thought reading that other article.
Burqa is another word for chadri.
It was like you're in hijab, like if you're covered or if you're acting.
Yeah, I think one of them's a cowl and the other one's the face cover with the mesh, like on the front.
Yeah.
But there's
This
the
is
word for that
this is
denotes
a
like the
hijab,
actual
that's a chadri.
covering, but then there's a word that's just like the idea.
Oh yeah.
I think, but they're the same.
I like that one of the passages in the Wanting More book about why she wore that one with the face mesh, and like I don't know, she kind of talked about like the advantages of wearing it, like nobody could see her crying when she was at the wedding, and then like later she talked about how like she could be walking down the street and men wouldn't look at her because they couldn't see her, and then they weren't like thinking about like I don't forget the words that she
Thinking about
used.
her in like a sexual
Yeah,
way.
I forgot the words that she used, but yeah, she essentially said that none of the men were looking at her in a sexual way, and that empowered, like, kind of
Yeah.
made her
See,
feel
I've always
safe.
had this,
and I
like,
it made me kind of like rethink.
Perspective of
The
like
whole
negative
idea,
connotation, but like to them it's empowering, which
Yeah.
I thought was
Yeah,
really
the
cool.
perspective I've had in the past is like
Yeah.
women shouldn't have to
Like, oh,
cover
they don't have a
themselves
choice,
because
they
men
shouldn't
can't
have-
control their
exactly,
like
so-
own temptations or like
Yeah.
urges. Like that's stupid.
So it's kind of
There's
just
a lot of
interesting to get
responsibility
into
to put on yourself, I think, too.
Yeah.
That's, like, but then also, like, it's empowering. Then I
Yeah.
can't really
Make it-
question that.
But yeah, that's why I thought it was cool though that like it was from like the girl's perspective, and that like she was fine like wearing that while she was walking on the street, and like kind of enjoyed the protection that it gave her. I thought that was interesting because like you were saying, like most people are like, oh, why are they covering themselves? That's so wrong and oppressive. But then if you actually stop and ask them if they're okay
Do
wearing
they
it,
think it's
yeah, most of them like want to wear it. Like she said, like it like was her mother's, and so like they're like cultural things that
And
you
it's
hand down too, and
like
pass
her
down.
identity too,
Yeah.
you know?
Like the blue one that she originally showed up with, like she didn't want to give it
She's
away.
proud
Like,
of that.
I thought that was pretty cool that they tied in the common themes of family into this, like, because then that instantly makes everybody relate to it. Like, oh yeah, I have something my dad passed down to me too, but it's not as like significant as that. You know, it's just some stupid token.
Like it doesn't necessarily
Yeah.
signify your culture.
Yeah, like my dad gave me a pocket knife. Like, cool. Like that doesn't signify my culture at all. Like it almost like it seems cooler in a way.
Hijab.
2 for 2.
Yeah, interesting though. I guess a muddy question for me would be like, since we did focus on all of these different aspects each week, like why was feminism not included? Like, maybe
But I think
in the
it
future
was
course.
with the books we read. Like
Yeah,
I
it
think
might
there
have
were
been.
a lot of strong female characters that we read, and we read about them like across different cultures. And I think it didn't have its own section, but like
I think it was
It was
kind
kind
of
of
woven
woven
throughout.
throughout.
yeah, and opportunities to
underlying,
discuss it were definitely woven throughout as well.
Yeah. I guess it just wasn't like a big focus of like a week.
Yeah.
Like
No, right. And at first that irked me a
socioeconomic
little bit
was
too.
only-
Yeah.
One thing I would like too is I would like to read more books about characters who are Buddhist and characters who are Hindu.
And see,
Agreed.
And Sikh.
yeah, I was learning recently in my Asian American Studies class about the riots here in Bellingham that were anti-Hindu. Did you guys know about that?
No.
Yeah, in like 1909 or something like that, 1910, there was a serious riot here in Bellingham, like where we were loading a bunch of Hindu people onto trains and
Oh
sending
my
them to
god.
Canada. Yeah, there's a plaque downtown that says like, "This is where we were loading them on." Like, there's a plaque where they like if you could read, it's like pretty big actually. It's probably as big as a stable, and you can just read all about it.
Shoot.
So yeah, they
Where don't
most of them were Sikh. But yeah, that's why I brought it up. Like they were like only like a couple of them were actually Hindu, the rest were Sikh. And like that just showed like how ignorant we
Like
were.
a
Like,
book.
oh, you're all Muslims, get them out of here. It's like,
Yeah.
nope, they're Sikh. That's completely
There's a lot
different.
of diversity
Yeah.
within these groups.
One of my really close friends is Sikh, and I learned like a lot about her religion and or like her way of life, and it was just like there's a lot of things that people can think about them because like a lot of men like grow their hair out, and it's like part of who they are, and they're also supposed to carry around like little like knives as well, and that's like part of these things that they're supposed to have at all times. And like she's had a lot of people think they're like really violent when they're not violent.
Isn't there something like the 5 H's? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
In Sikh, is it in Sikh?
Mhm.
It's like hair. I can't remember. But there's like
There's like a little.
it's one of their core values. There's like the 5 H's. It's like in terms of like the way you dress or something like that, the way you act. I forgot what it was though. And one of them is hair, and so that's like
I was
It's
reading
not just a
about
personal
like Native
choice.
Americans and like the men and how they wear their hair in braids and how
Yeah.
like it's a really big bonding time for like fathers and sons when the father will like braid their hair. They can talk about like their culture and their traditions and like share stories and stuff. And I was like, oh, I never would have thought of that. Like people
Hair
would look
has
at
a
them
lot
and
of
be like,
Mm-hmm.
oh,
it does.
Significance
you look like a
and
girl
cultural
because your
value.
hair's in braids. It's like,
No, this is way deeper than
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I think it's kind of sad, like it's changing now, especially in our area, but, but that like men aren't really allowed to grow their hair out. Like, I mean they are, but like
No, that's very true. It's considered really feminist or feminine.
Men.
Yeah, sorry.
yeah, and it's like
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just interesting because other cultures are so like hair is pretty significant.
Or yeah, it's like it's kind of transitioned from like, oh, if you had long hair, you were a hippie and you probably smoked, to now it's like, you have long hair, you're probably gay.
Or
It's
extra,
like,
like
yeah.
there's just like you know you it carries some sort of significance or
But
meaning.
that's
Whereas, like,
American society for you.
My question is like, if a guy wears a bun, why do people have to call it a man bun? Can't it
It's
just
just
be
a
a
bun.
bun?
Yeah.
That's true.
Or like,
So
if
like-
a guy has a purse, why do they have to call it like
Man.
a purse, a man
Yeah,
purse, or
purse.
It's a
something?
satchel.
You know? Yeah.
Yeah, like
It's a
Don't call it it's a satchel.
that always bugs me too. For like I don't know, for like so their only options are like their pockets, their jacket, or like a backpack.
Yeah.
Like, well, I don't want to carry it back.
Not that much
Yeah.
space in those
It's rough,
pockets.
it's rough out here for us guys.
Fanny pack.
Yeah.
Not allowed-
Yeah.
You can't wear purses.
But your pockets are deep, which is
Yeah, you don't have these chintzy little like.
no,
Or
I'm
fake
not-
pockets.
I'm not complaining
Yeah,
over
I
here.
can maybe get my
I got
pants.
cargo shorts. I got like 6 pockets.
Yeah, look at those.
Yeah,
Wow,
that's
you could
Okay,
store a
I'm
whole
good.
Discman
I
in
could
there.
fit that
CD
book in
player, boombox.
One question I did want to bring up about this book before we left was, did you guys like how they portrayed American people in this book?
You mean when they came into the orphanage and like
Yeah,
look at her lip and
yeah,
stuff?
and like the just like the few comments she made about like the craters on the streets and like the leftover tanks, or like just like how we left basically all of our like post-war garbage there, and then like if we, yeah, I don't know.
I don't necessarily think that I was offended.
No,
if
I
that was
wasn't
her
offended at all.
perspective. Like if that's what she saw.
Mhm.
I mean, if I were her, I would probably think the same thing too. Or if I was in the orphanage and they came in and like tried to like fix us, I
think I
might.
thought
feel
she was
that way
pretty
as well.
gracious.
Yeah.
You know,
I wanted her honestly to go a little bit more like deeper into it and kind of criticize Americans a little bit more honestly. Like that's why I wanted to bring it up, because I think that America needs to be criticized way more than it is, and especially in literature and especially in like anything contemporary. Like just because like obviously we're growing up in America and going to American schools, we're not going to be like reading books that criticize America.
Yeah.
I
Right?
think we should though.
Yeah,
Like,
I think that is like something that's
Absolutely.
vitally important for like
Give us an
the young
outsider's
generations. Like
perspective.
yes,
Mm-hmm.
criticize so you can make this country better. Like instead of just pretending this country's great all the time, like actually criticize it and then fix the problems.
Yeah,
And I wish this book did a little bit more of that instead of like, because there's a few comments where she was like, oh, half this house was destroyed by an American bomb, and then later they were like thinking about the people coming by and donating to the orphanage in a really negative way, like, oh, they only come by and see your lip and give money, then they leave and they don't care about us. First they destroy our country and then they try to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I don't know, I really liked how
Having
she
that
included those
perspective.
sentences, and but I just wanted a little bit more. Like I
Yeah,
wanted
go deeper.
just a little bit more
Yeah.
criticism. You
Because
know?
we definitely don't hear the other side of it. No.
You even said that's in your tagline.
I wasn't
We're
trying
like
to.
everything.
Boom.
That's what I was thinking.
But like I feel like we don't get that perspective like at all.
No.
Like we get how Americans feel about it, but we don't hear anything else. And so being able to at least see that, and even if it's just in literature, is really nice because it does provide another perspective.
Yeah.
To see.
Do you think like one way that it could have been dealt with deeper in this book, or maybe like just in other things, is to like kind of lay plain like our country's interest in like when we do meddle with other,
Yeah.
or, like put our hands on other things, like usually
to make
it's
us look
because
better?
we have
Resources.
Like
economic gains.
Mm-hmm.
Is something that
Like,
we'll
if-
benefit from.
So you're saying you would have liked it more if like the character in this book was said something. Like,
Oh, I don't know about this book in particular, but like in
Just
general,
something
I
like-
think that like
just kind of like hinted at the fact that Americans only came to Afghanistan for oil. or something like
yeah,
that.
or not even hint at it. Be like,
Just-
this is why like
Yeah.
we're here, or like you know,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
But I wonder though if that would be authentic. Like, do they actually know that?
That.
Do they actually think that?
yeah, I don't know.
Like from their point of view, like why did the Americans come?
Mm-hmm.
Like I want to know. Did the majority of them like appreciate that the Americans came to kick out the Taliban? Because like I don't know. Like I feel like what percentage of the people hated the Taliban as much as like we did, wanted them out, and like welcomed the Americans to get the Taliban out. You know what I mean?
And how much do they hate the Taliban compared to how much do they hate the Americans?
Yeah.
How much were they just trying to live their
Like,
lives?
Yeah.
Yeah, like were we the lesser of two evils? Like they allowed us to come in because they wanted the Taliban out, and then
Yeah, like
you
that
know
was
what I mean?
that like it had started to be like a new normal for them.
Yeah.
And people don't talk about it, but there are things that the Taliban did that wasn't awful too. And that was something that like
I'm listening to this podcast right now called Serial, and it had like a really pretty famous first season, and now the second season is the story of Bo Bergdahl, who basically left his
Post.
his post in Afghanistan and was captured by the Taliban, and he had a lot of different reasons for what he did, and it's like hugely controversial, but it does give you sort of perspective of those people toward American soldiers and like how I guess diverse it is in the power structures within those countries that I don't have like a good enough understanding to explain it, but I would recommend listening to that podcast.
It's called Serial.
Mm-hmm.
like
Serial, like
S-E-R.
S-E, because it's like week by week.
Oh, okay.
So serial.
Gotcha. Cool.
But yeah, the first season is
Sounds
also
intense.
really good.
Is it also
Really
documentary?
No, do you know This American Life?
Oh,
On Netflix.
someone told me to watch something called Serial, so
Listen to
Probably
it.
different.
Listen to it.
okay, listen to Serial.
Yeah.
Don't watch it.
It's seriously though, it's like you'll get really hooked
Okay.
on the first season, especially. This one's more dense and like at least harder for me to understand, but I feel like I'm learning a lot about like the
Cool.
military and I don't know,
Yeah.
just different stuff.
So cool.
Interesting.
I feel like it's just so hard to know everything about everything because it's like unless you were there and unless you have like firsthand accounts, it's like how do you know?
It's hard.
Yeah.
But I think it's like a good thing. I think it's good that we want to know.
Mhm.
And I think like
It's good that we're wanting more.
it's really good that we want more. I think Joe's gonna watch Joe's gonna watch this and she's gonna be like, oh my god,
I'm docking their points.
No, extra
Too
points.
many points.
Yeah, how many
Too
puns
puns.
did you make? I kinda wanted some more, I don't know.
Keep going all day.
I think it's good that we want to know and learn as much as we can about
Yeah.
different things, but it is frustrating because
Mhm.
it kind of feels like for instance for me,
You want the
the
whole
more
truth and
that
nothing
I
but the truth.
yeah, the more that I learned about like Hinduism, for example, it's like the less I know. Like I'm just like
Yeah,
The
that's
more
what
that
I feel like with
the
Like
more
you
that I
think you know
learn
everything
about-
going into it, and then you learn about it, and you're like, I know nothing.
Yeah, the more that I learn
That,
about
like, do not understand.
I bought like the Quran at like a bookstore and I tried to start reading it and I was like, I'm so like what? Like there was like so many things that I was like, what? Like this is so.
I feel like that's just from 0 to 60. You just straight up try and read the Quran.
Yeah, it was a little bold. It's like if you just like picked up the Bible for the first time and you're like, let's read the whole thing.
We're just gonna sit down.
Alright, let's do it.
It's kind of ignorant, yeah.
Genesis, here I go.
Yeah, but I think it's good that we have the desire,
Yeah.
and that we should fuel like kids to have that same desire. And like if we don't read all these books in class, they should be available. I think, and then if we're doing units, there should be units on like both perspectives. So like it'd be really cool if we had like a military perspective, and then we've had this perspective too.
I think that's a good ending note.
Yeah, so our money question is like sort of the what information is available and how is it different in
Yeah.
different countries, like
I
specifically.
don't know, like if
you
I'm
Google
trying to
something.
search for something and someone in another country is trying to
Then
search for
we
something,
also
are we both
had-
getting the same information or
We had our muddy little discussion about how much the whole.
money discussion?
I know. Sometimes I'm like, yeah, this isn't really a question, but we definitely have questions about it.
Yeah.
Like
Mm-hmm.
the whole, how much the Holocaust is covered versus other
Other instances.
instances of genocide throughout history or even current events.
Yeah, is Holocaust material like a state requirement?
I think so.
I think so. But I think there's ways that you can incorporate other genocide in with
Yeah.
that.
I would.
I took a
Definitely.
surviving the Holocaust class my first year of college.
I remember you talking about.
Yeah.
Talk about like leaving that class every day, like
Wanting to cry.
bummed out. Yeah, basically.
It's such a depressing topic.
Yeah. But that, like you're saying though, like I wish I had taken a different class because I had already had background information into the Holocaust. Like it would have been nice to get.
And just I honestly recommend movies too, like Killing Fields. That
I'm
movie.
gonna watch that. I read
It's
that doc.
good. My mom shows it.
Gonna watch that
in
and Ken Burns, Eleanor, the Roosevelts.
Cereal.
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 Seriously.
He does want to. Ken Burns does like documentaries on all sorts of different things.
Thanks, Joy.
Bye, Joy.
Bye, July.
Bye forever.
Have a good spring break.